Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to EUROWATCH. I am, as ever, joined by the lovely Ritik Sakar. Ritik, my Californian friend, what is it like in the USA as your country falls apart minute by minute?
Well, I'm in the bubble of San Francisco here. A lot that happens in the rest of the country doesn't really affect us so much, but we've been under like a lockdown or a different or stricter lockdown since March. So every day sort of similarly feels the same. But Alex, tell me about a bit about what Tier 4 and a post-Brexit Britain is looking like.
Oh, that's a wonderful question. But tier four, London. A couple of my friends haven't been outside since November. It's been interesting. It's also interesting that my area is the worst in the country. We have 1,000 cases per 100,000, which is one of the worst rates in the world. It's been fun because no one around here wears a mask, so we're all in good stead. But anyway, enough about the horrible stuff of the world. We'll go on to one of the more brighter topics, which is the fact that our EuroWatch Guess Who player of last podcast was guessed very quickly. It was guessed by @BadChelseaTakes on Twitter. Editor, please play the clip of last week's clue. I am a top European striker who has won a major international tournament, but only won one league title in my. I won the league in my homeland, and it was a famous title win, all the way back in 2012. In the World Cup 2018, I played nearly every minute for my country, but he only got one shot on target in over 4 matches. Okay, so the right answer was indeed Olivier Giroud, playing at Montpellier, won the league in 2012, has played in a major international tournament for France, played every minute of the one in the 2018 World Cup, and only got one shot on target. Well done to @BadChelseaTakes on Twitter. He beat about 4 other people by mere seconds to guessing it. So please, everyone go follow me on Twitter and stay till the end of the podcast for our next one. But today, Ritik, who are we going to discuss?
So we're going to discuss one of the more favored teams of Europe, the one-time European champions, the Netherlands. This is a country that has birthed some of the most iconic modern post-war footballers that we've come to know and love. You know, the likes of Frank Rijkaard, Johan Cruyff, Robin van Persie, Arjen Robben. You know, these are the people who've blazed a trail, you know, lit a path, definitely made an imprint on the European game. Some more than others, but they've come to an interesting crossroads of their destiny after not having qualified for both the last World Cup and the last Euro tournament. You know, that's unprecedented for Dutch football. They sort of come roaring back with a little bit of a newer identity, a greater dependence on the youth, and a play style that is both adaptive and effective, you know, more akin to the Dutch total football that we're so used to seeing. Although it isn't everybody playing every position, it's closer to that than it ever has been before.
You wanted to touch on Ronald Koeman, how he's revitalized Dutch. I am very ready and waiting to slam Frank de Boer, but give the listeners a bit of insight into what Ronald Koeman's done before he's a bit more controversial about Barcelona.
Right. So a lot of you listening might know of Ronald Koeman's I would say tumultuous beginning at Barcelona. He's getting back on track right now, but before that, he was given the reins of the Dutch national team, you know, after they had failed to qualify for the last World Cup, and he has turned this team around into a team that is a lot more solid, grounded, and a team that that basically has a lot of leaders on the pitch, but also fosters in young talent. You know, you see the likes of people like Virgil van Dijk, Stefan de Vrij, Davy Klaassen in cases, and Memphis Depay, like building a core group of leaders and sort of building around them. And Ronald Koeman wasn't really fancied for the job because if you all would remember, he was a manager at Everton when they went through a pretty, you know, disappointing spell when they had a few good players. Notably, Ronald Koeman is also the man who played Dominic Calvert-Lewin at right wing back for 5 straight games. So coming into the Dutch national team, there were a lot of question marks, but his performances, especially in the European qualifiers, as well as UEFA Nations League, which they were runners up, was quite outstanding. And it's quite a feat that he got the Dutch national team to where they are. But just as they were, achieving the fever pitch, Barcelona came calling, and this time Koeman couldn't say no.
Yes, and Frank de Boer was the manager to take over. And to say his spell has been controversial would be a bit of an understatement. His appointment was the opposite of exciting, I think. Many Dutch fans, people at Football Orange, a really good page, they were quite sceptical. Frank de Boer went on to have the worst managerial start to a Netherlands career in history. He failed to win any of his first 4 games, which is, to be fair, isn't horrific, but the tagline of worst Dutch manager in history isn't fantastic.
And worst manager in Premier League history by one Jose Mourinho.
Yeah. But Rittik was touching on the play style of how it improved under the Dutch. I think some fans are a bit sceptical a little now. I mean, if anyone watched their most recent Nations League game, their most recent competitive game, which was against Poland, they were quite lucky to win that match. So me and Rittik thought, in what is a big topic and what is a team which hasn't really got a clear starting 11. They've got some older players, a lot of middle players, and a very large amount of depth, but only a few clear starters. We thought we would go away separately and come up with our own starting 11s, and we would debate it live here on the pod and come up with the ultimate one. Rittik, are you ready?
Yeah, and just to give the listeners just a bit of an idea, we are going, or at least I assume, because Alex and I don't pre-plan these things. For your benefit, we go on completely, we've rehearsed on ourselves, but we have never rehearsed together. You guys deserve, the first-hand reactions. So I assume we're going with a back 4, 3 midfielders, and 3 players up front.
Kind of, yes.
Whatever formation them again.
I've gone for a 4-2-3-1. What about you?
Exactly the same. Exactly the same.
Yeah. I would like to start. I have in goal. I have gone with Marco Bizot of AZ Alkmaar. What about you?
Oh my! This is not what I expected. I've actually just stayed with Jasper Cillessen.
Okay, can I put my argument against Jasper Cillessen? Because
of course,
my argument is he hasn't played a La Liga minute this season for Valencia.
Fair enough.
He also Cillessen's save rate, I believe the last time I checked, was about 65%. Meanwhile, Marco Bizot, he is playing for AZ Alkmaar in the Eredivisie, so obviously he's a little more unknown, but he's had a very good couple of years in Holland. Rittik, he's got 85% save rate, which obviously you're facing a bit of a lower quality of shots in the Eredivisie, not by much. You've still got some good strikers, but that is genuinely fantastic. He's very good with his feet as well, which I believe helps with the Dutch national side. And to be honest, Bizot is actually I've got my most on him. So why if you've got the mindset that we'll just stick with Cillessen, I'd like to debate it. But if you've got your reasons is your own, I want to listen. Go for it.
Yeah. So the reason I've got him in, he's played 5 games in 2020, despite not having started for Valencia. And if you'll notice with a lot of other players, this seems to be a very similar situation to, I would say, Sergio Romero when he was United's backup shot stopper. He was still starting for Argentina because he had fostered, a real relationship with the back 4. And I'll tell you why he'll be even more important, because we don't know how Virgil van Dijk is going to come back. We don't know when he's possibly going to come back. That's a big leadership figure.
Input on that.
We'll get to that.
We'll get into that later.
We'll get to that.
Continue.
But given Cillessen's experience with the national team, the fact that he's played 5 games in 2020, and the fact that they won't have a towering presence of Virgil van Dijk, you've seen in previous tournaments how Cillessen's been, more able to command, backlines, whether they were a back 3 or a back 4, as we saw in Germany, in obviously going a while back to the Dutch team under Van Gaal, where he was, controlling a back 3 of I believe, Bruno Martins Indy, Stefan de Vrij, and Ron Vlaar. And he controlled that really well. His command, his vocalizing of the problems was really good. Obviously, he hasn't made the last couple of national team appearances, but I still think like an elder statesman in the between the posts is the way to go.
Okay, to be
But
fair, to be fair, a lot of my team is based on experience. I think the Dutch national team needs that going into this tournament. I'd like to touch on that bit at the end, but you know, to keep it quick for the listeners as well, I will concede Jasper Cillessen. He's also got 56 national team appearances, so I think that's fair. Okay, right back. I'd like to start us off again. I have gone with, it's quite a boring choice. I've gone with Joel Veltman. What about you?
Hans Harteboer. And I'll give you my
okay. I've got
reasoning why.
I've got Harteboer at left back. I thought he was left back. At least he's listed on a. Let's double check this. Where did you get the info for Harteboer? One of us is about to be embarrassed.
Well, let's see. The thing is, I know he's played both flanks because he's played both flanks for Atalanta, and I believe he's played both flanks for the Dutch national team. He's primarily a right back from what I remember, and I think as at Atalanta he's largely been a right back because Atalanta's left back used to be Gosens, right? Of Germany. That's who the
and it also operated Timothy Castagna. To be fair, yeah, I'm looking at it now. Harteboer on Transmart is listed as a left back, but then in his minutes he's only played as a right back or centre back. So thank you, Transmart, for making me look ridiculous.
See, this is why everybody needs to watch Atalanta.
Yeah.
It's just attack and vibes.
Mental.
It's just attack and vibes. Yeah. So
okay.
So why have you?
Harteboer right back, I say.
Yeah. So, but why have you gone with Veltman at right back? Because I usually associate him with being a centre back.
Because he played he has played at centre back and right back. He's one of those players a bit versatile. I went with him because in my head it was him or Denzel Dumfries. Dumfries, I think, is not ready for the international tournament yet. Veltman's a lot more reliable. He's played at Ajax, played at Brighton, both in possession-heavy teams. So I thought he'd be a pretty good fit. But Harteboer, please go in. So I'm interested for left back because I don't care who you've gone with. I'm not going with Patrick Van Aanholt. So we'll get to that.
We're going to have an argument there soon enough. But I'll tell you why I've gone with Harteboer as well. Is because the Dutch national team, and especially I foresee this happening a bit under a manager like De Boer, who has played a back three system before. Harteboer is much more able to play as both a right back and a right wing back. He's someone who can sort of like marshal both sides. But if you've seen Atalanta, especially over this season when they've struggled a bit, Harteboer has worked a bit more on this defensive side of the game, trying to link up the game a little bit better. Now, if Gianpaolo Gasperini had started playing, with a winger formation, Harteboer would have had a lot more help. But his crosses in from deep, his ability to read the game, his ability to fall back in a flat four or go higher up as a right wing back gives him that sort of versatility that you will need in a national team player.
I can say we'll put Harteboer in there. Go with your centre back duo.
My centre back duo is a bit more roll the dice. Hopefully they're both fit in form. Obviously, I've talked a little about Virgil van Dijk. I've personally kept him out because I don't know when he's going to recover or when he'll be back by, and it's always tricky putting a defender there. But I have gone for Stefan de Vrij and Matthijs de Ligt. Mainly because Stefan de Vrij, in my opinion, has been one of the most standout, solid, and dependable centre backs in the Serie A. Maybe in the last 2 seasons, he's both a strong presence in the tackle and the one-on-one situation. He's a better leader than a lot of people expect, and I've also gone with De Ligt because before this last injury spell with Juventus, he was one of Juventus's best players. He really, really improved on his game. He had a very shaky start at the Juventus Stadium. And, it took a while for him to come into his own. But given his threat from set pieces, given his ability to progress the ball up front, communicate better with midfielders, people like Frankie de Jong, his passing range overall. And I feel like this is the right sort of mix because De Vrij is now graduated to become a bit more of the elder statesman of the Dutch national team.
Okay, I've got to come up with mine. So what I have put Van Dijk in purely because but recently 6 days ago, Frank de Boer did come out with some good words. Apparently, but he's come out fairly certainly that not only will Van Dijk be fit by April, but he should be completely ready for the Netherlands opener.
Oh wow!
So if that's true, Van Dijk's in. Now this should be a bit of a shorter bit because what I quite like about this, I was going to say actually, is that you've got more Serie A knowledge, which is somewhere I completely ignore in the benefit because it's just because I like to focus on the places like France, Holland, Belgium, places like that. So, but our knowledge bounces it out. So I am willing to concede De Vrij and or a person who've gone for his name, De Ligt, sorry. Yeah. Completely willing to go with either of them. The only reason I left out De Ligt.
Have you gone for Sven Botman?
He's injured. I have indeed gone for Sven Botman, yes. But I am willing to concede him just because obviously he's 21. He's so young. But I'll keep it short. He has had probably the most monstrous season you'll ever see from a centre back across Europe. Yeah, that's not an understatement. Yeah. He looks like I'm not gonna try and over exaggerate to take credit away, but I've spoken to a lot of people on Twitter recently who've asked me about the opinions of him. There's been a lot of tactical breakdowns. He is genuinely, he's got the physicality of someone like a Van Dijk, but also the passing ability of a Laporte. He's been sensational. Do you know, Ritik, it took him 9 games to misplace a pass of any length. It's given 9 matches.
And Lille currently third in Liga? Where? Yeah. They're currently third. Wow. Yes.
So I would like to say, I'd quite happily go with De Vrij, just because De Vrij or De Ligt, I'll let you choose alongside Van Dijk. But if Botman keeps his form up, it might be worth putting him in, because if it's always good to have a player in on form for centre-backs. But who'd you rather, if it's Van Dijk, I want to lose 3, who are you putting in? Go on, just give us the names, otherwise we'll be here for years.
Wait, another centre-back choice besides Van Dijk?
Yeah, so one to sit next to Van Dijk out of the ones you've listed, out of Botman, De Ligt, and De Vrij.
De Vrij.
I'm willing to admit that, yeah. I think that's a...
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
De Vrij, Van Dijk, and Cillessen.
Okay.
Great bedrock.
Right.
But onto a little bit more spicy sides of it.
Go for left back. Go for left back.
You wanted to punish my left back choice because I've actually still gone for Patrick Van Aanholt.
I can see why, because there's not many left backs, but I want to put your case forward.
Really
put your case forward.
So I've sort of picked him because he's a better overlapping left back than I think anybody, definitely anybody in the Netherlands has gone back. But I'll tell you exactly why I'm taking him specifically at left back, because his defensive abandonment issues, and I don't take this lightly, are better covered by the Dutch defenders than they are by the Crystal Palace central defenders. Crystal Palace's defensive line is not nearly as good as the teammates he has in the Dutch national team, which sort of gives him the license to attack a little bit further. And his frailties are sort of made up by this backline. Of course, this is a bit theoretical, and this is taking a bit more of Koeman's side versus De Boer's side, but this is the reason I picked Patrick Van Aanholt, because his deficiencies can be masked better by the better defense that he's playing with at national team versus club level.
Okay, I'm glad you've covered that. I think that was actually a very good argument to put forward to him. A lot more calmer. I mean, as punishment for me putting Hateboer at left back, we're gonna have to put Van Aanholt in. But one, I think Frank de Boer should give as many minutes to Owen Wijndal as possible until he realises the AZ left back is not, until he's confirmed he's not better than Van Aanholt for this. And two, to the Crystal Palace fans on Twitter who play a game every weekend of where is Van Aanholt, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I couldn't put forward a better left back, but Ritik has put forward a good case, to be fair, that his deficiencies can be covered by better teammates. Now, Ritik, I'd like to start with your Serie A knowledge and especially Atalanta knowledge. For my CDMs, I've gone for Frenkie de Jong and Martin de Roon. De Roon, I am going to admit freely, like I said, I don't watch Serie A. I know nothing about. I am just completely 1,000,000,000% against putting in the centre midfielder that De Boer has decided to persevere with.
Klaassen.
Yes, I would. I would rather take a ghost than David Klaas. I'm not sure if you managed to catch the highlights of the Netherlands beat Poland. In the first 10 minutes...
I slept. I went to sleep in that game. I'm not even going to lie.
The first 10 minutes, Poland are on the attack. I believe it's what leads to the first goal. But if Per Mertesacker had 35 pace on FIFA, Klaassen should have 2 pace. He's been left in 2020 from that first goal. I mean, to give a better example...
He's not even that old.
Yeah, he's 29, I think. To give a better example for listeners, better description, yes. So on the left, I believe it's... I can't remember the Polish name. I'm not going to try and mispronounce him. It's attacker going down... No, it's not Kukoviak. It's not quite that slow, but it's a fairly quick player. But he's gone. The ball's being played down the left channel in the opening 5 minutes. It's not as if Klaassen's tired. Klaassen is the player meant to be tracking. Klaassen starts in front of the forward. A gap of about 20 yards is created until they reach the box, and he's just left completely in the dust. So please justify to me. I mean, you can just say he is better, but give me the case why De Roon should be picked. Well, I should probably ask you, who have you gone for as well?
I've actually gone for the exact same as you. I've gone for De Roon in the number 6 position and De Jong in the number 8. And I'll tell you why I've gone for this double pivot specifically. Now, fans of Barcelona have, largely been frustrated by, is De Jong going to play centre mid? Is he as better as a central defensive midfielder? Why is he playing centre back? The Frankie de Jong question has come up so many times, and this is why I think Martin de Roon is coming. And the reason I picked de Roon is actually simple, is that the Dutch national team, sometimes a bit like I would say the German national team, tends to favor players who come from one of the 2 or 3 best academies, either the PSV academy or largely the Ajax academy. Players like Klaassen, players like de Jong, players like De Ligt. So many people, so many of the Dutch national team, Dali Blind, who've come from this Ajax academy because they foster a system which a lot of Dutch players are used to, and in theory that builds better. It fosters a better sense of camaraderie in the national team. But I think de Roon is a good combo breaker. Now, because he doesn't come from that Ajax academy, quote unquote, he's a bit more of an old school line breaker and sort of defensive option. So if you cast your minds back to someone like Giovanni van Bronckhorst, that kind of stature of a player, Martin de Roon is sort of that player because he's either a line breaker, a solid defensive option who can screen and fill in for the right back if the right back bombs up the channel. Say someone like Hateboer runs up. This has happened at Atalanta very often. Hateboer runs up, de Roon sort of comes back into his position, more akin to what Fabinho was doing with Alexander-Arnold last season. So that's a very useful type of midfielder to have. So why do you feel Frankie de Jong would be, obviously he seems like the obvious choice, but convince me a little bit more about why Frankie de Jong should be the second person.
It comes down to 1, the formation, and 2, his best form. Frankie de Jong's best form, the time everyone heard of him, the time he was unimaginably good at such a young age, was of course the Ajax Champions League run, blah blah blah, everyone knows, got to semi-final. But Ajax, actually, most people seem to think they have a 4-3-3 system. They don't. Erik ten Hag played a 4-2-3-1, and de Jong is best on the left side of defensive midfield, where he can drop.
Definitely agree.
Where he can drop back in between centre backs if he wants, but he has a bit more freedom. He's not the sole defensive player because he's not an N'Golo Kante or someone like that. He can't do it all by himself. So him playing next to de Roon.
He's not as physical a presence as you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I think both of them make up for each other's deficiencies because de Jong is good at getting the ball and getting it to midfield quicker. His passing range is a bit more precise, whereas de Roon is very good at running with the ball, say about 20 to 30 yards, and then playing the pass when other players have been sort of split and they free themselves for the pass. But coming to this stronger midfield lineup in front of them, this was sort of a hard choice because I had to pick between 2 players, one who does consistently well for the national team and one who does consistently well for both the national team and his club. And at that more number 10 position, I've gone with Gini Wijnaldum over Donny van de Beek.
Agreed.
For the simple reason that I think Wijnaldum plays either as a number 10 or as an 8.5.
Have you seen his national team statistics?
Yes, I have. They were quite surprising last time I checked.
He has 13 goals for the Netherlands since 2018. He's the top scorer in that time. It's crazy, but yeah, I'm glad you picked a good. What were you about to say about him before I had to interrupt? Because his statistics blew me away so much. I had to put it in there. But
Yeah,
well, go for it. Go on.
yeah. So if and this is to maybe paint a better picture for players who might be a little unaware. It's like when you had players like David Silva and Kevin De Bruyne are playing in that 8.5 roles. That's the kind of space where Wijnaldum is most effective, and you've seen him playing two different styles. When he played under Koeman, you saw him playing a bit more of a possession-based style. He was able to make those quick passes. He is able to pass and move. But when you see him under someone like Jurgen Klopp, his movement off the ball becomes a lot more prevalent. His abilities to get into the box for that final ball become a lot better. He has a very good scoring record. He has a very good industry in that midfield area. He's not the the silkiest number 10 that you'll ever see, akin to maybe like a prime Ozil or a James Rodriguez.
Yeah.
He's better than that for the national team. He's a goal scoring midfielder. He's a player who really has now taken up that leadership mantle. I remember back when you had, I think it was the 2000, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the 2012 World Cup.
14.
2014?
Yeah.
Or 2014 World Cup. Yes. LVG's World Cup, as I always like to call it. Wijnaldum, I think, had scored a goal in the third place playoff against Brazil. And he had looked like a talent that was, ready to carve the national team around in a couple of years. And obviously, his teammates weren't that good. His teammates are much better now. And this is do or die for him, because I don't think with the intensity he goes at, he has that many years left. He's also got a very questionable spotty injury record. So this tournament is where you capitalize on Wijnaldum 100%.
Yeah, I you know what, I'm the last bit of your argument there is where I'm coming from as well. I think Wijnaldum, he's a bit more of a big fish in a small pond in the national team now, whereas Liverpool's surrounded by superstars. He's a top scorer for the Netherlands. I think he loves playing for his country. It's clear when you see him celebrate for the country, he's one of those players that really takes the celebrations on. So I think he's especially in a European Championship, any major tournament, you need the leaders, and Wijnaldum is one of them. And speaking of players who love their country and want to play for them, my right winger, I'm willing to bet £1,000 you have not gone for.
Please tell me it's not Bergwijn.
No, it's not Bergwijn. He's at left wing. I've got Berghuis of Feyenoord.
Yes. Thank God we both got the same one.
Have you actually got him?
Yes.
Oh my goodness!
Yes.
I've lost £1,000.
Because I remember Promise playing on left wing, so right wing. I've seen, when I've watched the Dutch national team, I've seen Bergwijn playing there a bit more. But at 29 years old, Steven Berghuis is a bit of a late bloomer in the national team.
Yeah.
So give me a bit of insight.
Okay, so I'm quite an avid watcher of the Eredivisie, and Berghuis is one of those players who's just he does feel like he's a level above in a similar way to Ziyech. Whenever he plays, it kind of feels like you shouldn't be in this league. You should be somewhere else. He takes 50% of his shots from outside of the box, a bit like Ziyech, where he's the captain of Feyenoord in a title hunt at the moment. And a lot of people will be skeptical. Like, why are you picking players from a team from a league which isn't against, tougher opposition? But Berghuis has played 13 games in 2021, scored 10 goals and got 6 assists. I mean, I don't care which league you play in. If you're in that good a form, you deserve to have a look in. I think
he has 2 assists in his last 5 games for the Netherlands as well.
Yeah, it's about
both coming in victories versus Bosnia and Poland.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I was about to say there. So the reason I picked Berghuis, I think maybe he doesn't start depending on the game. If you want to counter attack, maybe you pick somewhere else, or a bit quicker, maybe a bit younger, a bit more spin in their legs. But I think Berghuis, again, he's a leader for Feyenoord. He's going to be bringing a good, strong personality to the Dutch national team. He's going to bring in confidence. If he's taken to the tournament, he's going to be coming with the mentality of, okay, I am great for my team. I am in scoring form, so well, like, nothing's impossible here. But Ristik, I want to hear your reasoning because I was not expecting you to go with him.
Largely for his performances in the last 4 or 5 games for the Dutch national team. Now, here's where I sort of got this winger conundrum. Now, I think the Netherlands' weakest point is that attack all across. And I don't think many people would argue that. They've got a very strong defense, a very mobile midfield, good backup options. But their attack is where it all fails. And if you saw the match against Poland, there's like create chance after chance, but there were such poor chances and such poor finishes. It's hard to watch. Now, I looked back at the last couple of games and saw who was doing well in certain positions, because we have to take into account a team that will be on form before the tournament. And obviously this counteracts my argument about Jasper Cillessen, but I think an argument for goalkeeper is a different breed. But when I saw BOER'S in the last couple of games, it was very interesting to see how well he was sort of marshalling that right flank. He, definitely leadership presence is big. And as you said, he should have been playing in a better league. I definitely agree. But at age 29, is he going to make that that jump, especially being the captain of his team? But he makes a lot more responsible attacking passes where you would see,
he brings experience.
Because if you had, a younger player, if you had someone from the academy you were throwing out there, who runs hot and cold, they'd be able to run to the edge, cut back, do some fancy footwork, and then lose the ball. Now, high risk, high reward system, yes, but where BOER'S sort of breaks that mold is his more disciplined approach, his more pass and move. It's a bit more pragmatic, a bit more deliberative. But in the larger scheme of the World Cup, in the larger scheme of international football, I think that's a bit more responsible to have. And given how dynamic the other attacker that we both know is, it's good to have that calming presence who'll stay on the wing, who'll stay on that side and be a reliable pass. Like, you won't find him wanting, at the center of midfield or at the center forward position. When you need him to be in the right place at the right time, BOER'S more often than not will be there. And that's a bit more of a reliable right wing presence that I think the Netherlands will benefit a bit more from. But going from the right, the left wing and the center forward position, I believe we've had a bit of a mismatch here. Because for me, I've kept Memphis Depay the center forward position, and I've kept
I have too.
I've kept Quincy Promes at the left position, despite all the memes, despite everything. I've still kept Quincy Promes at the left position.
Okay, I've gone for Bergwijn. Depay. Let's very quickly, under 30 seconds. Right, agree. Depay is the best player for the Netherlands. He's incredible. Chewing.
Yeah,
easy. Left wing, right. Quincy Promes, like I said, a big watcher of Eredivisie. Quincy Promes looks like an average Eredivisie player. I don't think you can put him over Steven Bergwijn, who, okay, he's not a guaranteed starter for Tottenham, but he's playing regular Premier League football. I think it is incredibly harsh to put Quincy Promes over Bergwijn. I haven't even checked Promes' international record.
It's not very good. If you've got some, it's not very good. Okay, I'm just gonna tell you, it's not very good. But
you've not got magic up your sleeve. So
here's the thing. During the qualifying periods, during the more crucial periods under Ronald Koeman, he was trusted more as being the left wing player. When you had matches like the 4-2 win against Germany. This was I would say last June, I think. He played fantastically. Didn't assist, didn't score, but the way he took pressure off Memphis in occupying the opposition right backs and center backs, letting Memphis come into the center. Now, wingers were very accustomed to seeing, goals, assist numbers. Players like, Messi, players like Salah, players like Mane. They've really spoiled our opinion of wide players in a sense to more inside forwards. Now, he doesn't score and he doesn't assist, but what he does really well works for the national team. And his form, especially under Koeman, was so good. And I remember there was a match against Estonia where he played the entire game as right back, and he got an assist in that game. He's a player who confounds everybody, including himself. He's a player who really confounds, but I think for the national team, it just works. And he's played as the national team left winger so many times that it's the best out of a bad bunch to me.
I see. Look, he's got a good work rate. I give you that. But the point about like he's not going to bring the goals and that fits in. I think if you're Memphis Depay and you're looking at your fellow attackers and you've got BOER'S, okay, a guy from Feyenoord, like he scored a lot of goals, but I can't guarantee. I've got Quincy Promes, Lord help me, and I've got Liverpool's centre midfielder behind me. I'm quite worried. Bergwijn's at least got a goal and assist in his last 11 international appearances for the Dutch national team. So I think he's got Berger, like Promise. Like I said, I was just watching Ajax beat PSV, and he managed to miss 2 big chances in that game. And I think if you put him on the international stage, I'm willing to put 50-50. I'm willing to not put either of them down. But
I'll also tell you the bigger problem that we aren't sort of addressing in this, or we might address later in this episode, is that the Dutch options at center forward are so horrible. They're so horrible where you're having to play Luke de Jong. You know, it's so heartbreaking that the Dutch attack couldn't be centered around someone like Bastos in his prime. Like it really broke me to see him really trying for the national team, but the system just worked against him. When you have someone like Luke de Jong, who is such a bit part performer, even for Sevilla, it pains you because ideally what you'd want a target man center forward and then Memphis Depay running right on the left wing, like he does at Lyon. Because even though he plays centrally for Lyon as well, his starting position is more akin to the left wing position. Now, because they don't have that, Memphis Depay has to come in as a center forward, and that leaves that left wing position sort of.
To be fair for Depay, he has actually in Ligue 1 this season. He has played a bit more centrally, and I do get what you mean though about the striking options Netherlands. And some people, just to answer this, because I think we've got a pretty much confirmed squad here, but just to answer a couple of definite questions people are going to have. First of all, what about Donyell Marlon? Well, Marlon in the Eredivisie, he's gone in and out of form. I think if you put him in this year's Euros, he's going to flop massively. There's way too much pressure on him. He's not ready. And what about Wout Weghorst?
We're really not ready.
What about Wout Weghorst? Like, where is he? Why is he not playing? Despite being 28 years old, he's only actually played 4 national team matches. For whatever reason, he has never been favoured. I mean, I'm not sure if there's a deeper underlying reason there, but Weghorst isn't really an option either. But
it's so tragic because the 2 people I have as the first bench options are players who should be starting anyway, but because their positions are so stacked, they can't really play. And that's Dali Blind and Donny van de Beek. Now, Dali Blind is either a centre back or a left back, and Donny van de Beek's either a 10 or an 8. But they're surplus to such good players in their starting positions that it makes me feel even more sad about, the whole attacking performance of the Dutch forward line.
Okay, we've got our starting 11. Let's begin to wrap it up, and we're going to move into the prediction. So just to give the viewers some context, now the Dutch national team, they've actually probably got one of the easiest routes to the final. They are in a group with Austria. They've got Austria, Ukraine, and Macedonia. North Macedonia, sorry.
North Macedonia.
If they win that group, they'll play third place from either Group D, E, or F. So the worst they could probably get is one of, if they're really unlucky, the third place in the group of Germany, France, and Portugal. But it should be okay there. If they make it to the quarters, they'll play probably Denmark, Russia, Turkey, or Wales. And after that, they're in the semis where anything can happen. But I think, Ritik, if they don't make it to the quarterfinals with that setup, it'll be regarded as a failure, a complete and utter failure. So there's not really much recent form to judge them off. Obviously, the 2014 World Cup, they did well, but that was a completely different time. Briefly, go for it. Wait, where do you think they'll end up? Sum it up inside a minute. Go for it.
Quarterfinal exit.
Quarterfinal exit.
I think they're going to run out of gas, and I think they're going to run out of attacking abilities because, especially when you've seen under Frank de Boer, you've seen a real dip in quality. And I think a lot depends on Virgil van Dijk's return because when I see someone like Nathan Ake in the team, I'm just not filled with much hope. I'm just not filled with hope when he plays a back 3 system because I don't think de Boer knows these players well enough to know how to get the best out of them. And that's what Koeman knew how to do. Koeman knew how to extract blood from a stone with this team. That's why they went from a laughing stock to a dark horse. But I don't think he had that. And this is kind of where I wanted to put this in the podcast when Ronald Koeman left, and there was a big question mark as to who would take over the Dutch national team. I was praying to anybody who would listen to have an outside choice to the Dutch national team, and I really, really wanted Arsene Wenger to take over. I think it would have been so perfect, because this is exactly the kind of team which I think Wenger would have really been convinced to make his return for. I would have loved it.
Saying quarterfinal then, okay. I'm going to be more hopeful, actually. I think Van Dijk comes back, and I think against that run, I reckon semi-final exit. I'm actually gonna. Well, to be fair, we'll tweak our final prediction at some point, but they've got a very easy run, and I think if they don't make it to the semi-finals, that is quite bad on the team. But there we go. That was a bit of a longer episode, but it's been a very good detailed discussion. Some great disagreements there. But Ritik, I'd like to hit you and the listeners with our EuroWatch guess who? Who is it going to be? I'll give you a clue. His name was very briefly mentioned in our conversation. Okay. I began my senior career in Feyenoord after spending 7 years with the youth team. I have 43 appearances for my national side, yet just 7 of those came in a major tournament where I actually grabbed a goal. I now spend my days at the former club of Ronaldo. That is your EuroWatch Player of the Week. Ritik, don't say who it is if you know it, but do you know it?
I had it till the last one. When you said former, till you said former club of Ronaldo, it's like, who the Dutch?
Throwing it in. But Ritik, I'll leave you thinking about it.
You whammied me there.
I'll say you after we stop recording. But thank you everybody for listening. That's been me and Ritik. Bye-bye.